think what you're saying is that because SecDef overrode the plea deal, we're back to square one with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11, and more than a handful of other, I think 2 other people.
Yeah, Mustafa al-Hassawi and Walid bin Attash.
But for me, I can understand why he overrode it, right?
Oh,
you can't
politically. I get it.
Yeah,
sure. He had to.
You can't.
It's an election year.
Well, you can't have the people who orchestrated 9/11 get off on a plea deal.
Yes.
And
I get it.
It's a sticky situation, but it's the UCMJ.
Yes.
UCMJ is the military court of justice.
Correct.
Which is not the civilian court of justice.
No, and while it is unusual to have a civilian, and of course Secretary of Defense has to be a civilian, it's unusual to have a civilian claim the authority to overturn it. He's within his legal rights to overturn it.
Well, I agree with him overturning it because you can't have them, just like we said, you can't have these men get out on a plea deal.
See, but what scares me though...
Election year or non-election year, like...
But that's exactly what scares me, because if you can't try them because you can't use that information against them, then what do you do with them?
Well, they're not American citizens.
But they still have constitutional rights.
And maybe that's the better question to be asking.
Well, see, that's for the Supreme Court. But they did say that
why do they have constitutional rights?
Because they're in U.S. custody.
Okay.
So they have, the most basic of rights. They have the right to face their accusers in a court of law, and they have a right to a trial by jury of their peers, unless it's in a military
and peers.
But that's the thing; they don't have any peers, and they're in the military system. So it's not going to be a jury of their peers. It's going to be a military jury, or even a non-jury military trial. But again, you come back to that issue of not being able to use the evidence against them. The CIA screwed that up.
Because we can't use any evidence because
they were tortured.
They were tortured, and all the evidence they gave up and everything they admitted to was while they were chained to an I-beam or getting waterboarded.
Technically, when they gave up that information, it was legal because it had been sanctified by a court.
OLC.
And then later that decision was overturned, and that's when torture became illegal. So their evidence was admissible. And then the policy changed, and that meant that their evidence is now inadmissible.
Correct.
According to like certain lines of the law. And that's what sucks about not just this case, but many cases where confidential courts get overruled by civilian courts.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what our court system does. A court system in Virginia can come to a conclusion that a court system in the appeal court changes, that the Supreme Court changes. So it's just a sticky element of our judicial process.
That's true. Yeah. It's a chaotic system.